Hello and welcome back. I'll tell you a story about a family that I had that was really trying to make a good decision, but it was better defined as a good decision gone bad. I was working with a family who we were really trying to promote a plant-based diet, and the mom came in and told me, she said, you know what, I stopped buying produce. And I said, well, why did you stop buying produce? And she said, because I can't afford apples that are $3.50 a pound that are organic, and so if it's not organic, I won't eat it, and gave up buying fruits and vegetables. So what did she substitute it for? Well, she was buying more snack foods and more processed foods. And again, the intent was, I want to provide healthy food for my family, but kind of missed the boat. So we're going to explore a little bit about the world of organic products and a little bit on, should I use organic or conventional? Well, let's take a little bit of a look at organic products and what consumers are doing. Consumer purchases of organic products have increased by 20% each year. It's pretty significant. These organic foods have been introduced into many grocery stores worldwide. So you used to only be able to find them in specialty stores or health food stores, and now almost every grocery store chain is going to have its own line of organic. The Food Marketing Institute estimates that about 50% of all shoppers in the United States have bought at least one organic product. So again, keep in mind as this becomes mainstream, the sales actually go up because you can get all your food in one store. Even more so, 81% of consumers surveyed buy organic foods because they believe it has a higher nutritive value than conventional foods. And we'll explore, does it really, or is that marketing? Many consumers believe that these foods can help to prevent certain diseases and reduce health risks, so they are willing to pay the extra price for organic. But are there significant health benefits to choosing organic foods? Are there nutritional concerns and qualified research supporting organic versus conventional? And this will ultimately come down to your personal choice. Which way do you want to take your family? Well, these questions they must be answered as global organic sales increase. Although the numbers indicate that sales are going to continue to increase, do consumers have any idea what they're actually putting into their shopping carts? Or are they going to make the same kind of error that my client did? If it's not organic, it's not for me. This lecture will explain the terms of what defines an organic product, what has the current research discovered regarding organic foods in the marketplace. So again, let's start out with our basic definitions. What is an organic food? Organic is actually a legally defined term, and it describes the way farmers cultivate and process agricultural products. It is also designed to support soil and water conservation and reduce pollution. So for you as a consumer, that may be enough of a reason to choose organic produce. It also will not allow for irradiation or genetically modified foods that cannot be certified as organic. Additionally, farmers do not use conventional methods to fertilize or prevent crop diseases. They use natural fertilizers such as manure or compost. Keep in mind that manure can contain E. coli, and if they're using a true manure product, you have to wash organic products just like you do conventional. Additionally, organic products use beneficial insects to reduce pests and diseases. Animals are provided with organic feed, and no antibiotics or growth hormones can be used in the raising or cultivating of that crop. Allowance of free range. Animals are not cooped up in a pen, but I want to caution you here for a second. We have to sort out, is this marketing or is this science? When you look at what happens with chickens at birth need to be imprinted, and what that means is that they follow along with what the rest of the crowd does, and that becomes their behavior. So if a young chicken is not allowed to be out of the coop or is not out of the coop very early in life, they're actually afraid of going out into the yard, and so they're allowed free range. That's the key word, they're allowed free range, but it doesn't necessarily mean they will be free range. And additionally, organic animals that are processed in an organic way must be humanely slaughtered. Okay. The term organic cannot be applied only to produce and meat and dairy foods and poultry, but also to processed foods that include breakfast cereals, crackers, baby foods, and the like. The USDA has guidelines for its organic certification program. Before a label can be given, a government-approved certifier must inspect the farm to make sure that the farmer follows all the rules. So again, this is our first guarantee. The symbol or label is a green and white circle with the words USDA Organic. And so that's what you're looking for. Again, this is oftentimes front of the package labeling. The USDA gives regulations on how foods are grown, handled, and processed, so it makes sense that they're involved with this process. Any organic food manufacturer or farmer that claims to sell organic products must have it labeled as USDA certified. Unless, there's always that exception to the rule, unless they sell less than $5,000 per year in organic foods. So again, you may have a wonderful organic farmer in your neighborhood that you buy from on a regular basis, but none of his or her products would have to have that label if they sell less than $5,000 a year in organic foods. So what about the labels? What kinds of words can we look for on those labels? Well, 100% organic, what does that mean? It means it's a completely organic product and made from all organic ingredients, and this can bear the green and white USDA label. Organic is another thing that you can see on the label, and at least 95% of the product is organic. And again, it can bear the same green and white label. Well, how does something become 95% organic? This is usually a product with more than one ingredient, like a bread or a pasta. You also might see it on a mixed fruit dish or something like a yogurt. So again, there might be almost everything's organic, but not quite. Then we have made with organic ingredients. The product contains at least 70% organic ingredients. And a lot of the energy bars that are on the market are going to have this seal. So you can go and say, well, I'm going to buy a sports bar to go run, and you see the 70% organic ingredients. The organic seal cannot be used on this package, so you won't see the white and green circle. All natural, free range, and hormone free. These labels should not be confused with organic. Those aren't necessarily legally protected terms, so be careful with that. Only the foods that meet the USDA standards can receive the organic label. Now, there are no national standards for organic seafood at this time, and part of it's because we import seafood from other parts of the world. Well, what about the nutritional value? Remember, that's what drives consumers' interest. Consumers believe the nutritional value of organic produce particularly is going to be greater than its conventionally grown counterparts. Well, the debate continues to rage whether organic produce is more nutritious, and the focus of the research has been on the following ingredients. So we don't have all the science sorted out, but we've focused in on these following ingredients. The nitrate content. Nitrate is actually a salt of nitric acid, and it's naturally occurring compound in some foods. The main contributors of nitrate in the diet include green leafy vegetables and oftentimes drinking water. Nitrogenous fertilizers may also contribute to the higher nitrate content of some foods. And again, this is going to be something that's going to be regulated by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. So again, sometimes the nitrate can occur naturally in foods, or it can be a byproduct, something that is not designed to be there. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency says an acceptable daily intake is less than 10 parts per million. High nitrate content can have negative effects. Now, that does not mean if you're eating a green leafy vegetable with a higher nitrate content that you need to stop. It really is implying those things that become runoff in water. So what does a high nitrate content cause? It causes methylmyoglobinemia, which can occur when nitrates that are not supposed to be in your food supply directly interact with hemoglobin, making it unable to carry oxygen in infants. So here's an example. When I remove nitrogen fertilizers, and remember, organic food can't have crops grown in conventional ways. When I remove it, I'm removing some of the source of what's considered to be undesirable nitrate in my diet. Well, certainly this nitrate can also be linked with cancers of the digestive tract, bladder, and ovaries. So again, the nitrate fertilizers or the nitrogenous fertilizers may be that initiating event in cancer. It's also linked with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And several studies have been conducted on the levels of nitrates in organic versus conventional foods. There have been mixed results, and again, science usually yields mixed results, with some showing that organic foods have significantly fewer nitrates. And does that make sense? That should make sense because they're not using these forms of fertilizer. However, other studies have shown that conventional has fewer nitrates. But overall, if we're going to cut to the chase, most studies give evidence that organic foods do have lower numbers or quantities of nitrates present on the foods. Well, another nutritional debate in organic versus conventional is the fatty acids in milk. And most of us think that the fat in milk, it's an animal fat, it's really not desirable. So the fatty acids that have been studied include polyunsaturated fats, and particularly omega-3 fatty acids, which we know from previous lectures have positive benefits. Then they compare that and take a look at the omega-6 fatty acid content of milk, which is linked to more negative health outcomes and oftentimes considered to be an inflammatory fatty acid. The fatty acid profile in milk has been linked to eczema, as organic milk has a higher level of omega-3 fatty acids than omega-6. Conventional milk has higher omega-6. Well, isn't milk milk? We'll explore that in a little bit more detail. Organic dairy products have been studied and are associated with a lower risk of eczema in the first 2 years of life as a child. A research study used milk samples from 19 conventional milk sources and 17 organic dairy farms, and here were the results. Organic milk from cows that are mostly grass-fed had a higher percentage of total omega-3 fatty acids versus conventional milk. The conventional milk from corn-fed cows had significantly lower percentages of omega-3 and therefore had little impact on skin disease. Remember, omega-6 fatty acids are inflammatory, may contribute to dermatitis or skin disease. So again, the final verdict here is the fatty acid content of milk or meat of any animal is dependent on how the animal was fed. And in the United States, most conventionally raised meat and milk, most conventionally processed meat and milk are going to be corn-fed, not grass-fed. American consumers are oftentimes a little bit fussy. They don't really like the way grass-fed milk tastes or grass-fed meat tastes. And again, this is an acquired taste. Well, what about other things other than the fatty acid content? What about vitamin C and other nutrients? Well, examples of foods that have been studied to compare conventional versus organic include lettuce, spinach, kale, chard, cabbage, and radishes. The results of one study showed that organic crops contain more of the following than conventional crops: more vitamin C, more of those wonderful polyphenolic compounds that are linked with potential health benefits. For example, the polyphenols in dark chocolate make it a healthy treat in moderation. So again, organic compounds, organic foods may have more of these wonderful polyphenolic compounds. Essential amino acids and total sugars are also going to be different in organic versus conventional. Another study analyzed matched pairs of organic and conventional samples and determined that the vitamin C, the alpha tocopherol, or a form of vitamin E, and phosphorus were higher in organic samples, as much as 63, 62, and 63% respectively. The conventional food samples had equivalent amounts of beta-carotene, that wonderful vitamin A precursor, yet higher levels of potassium compared to organic food samples. The conclusions to be drawn from these studies as to one theory as to why organic foods may have more nutrients is that the shelf life is shorter for organic foods and therefore they might be fresher. Keep in mind, organic foods are also not going to have that waxy coating on the outside, so they don't last as long. Organic produce also may be more likely to be more locally grown. And I can tell you at the stores in Houston, they'll also talk about Texas-grown organic foods to let us know that that organic food didn't have to travel all throughout the United States. And again, the longer it sits on the shelf, you might have some deterioration of nutritional value. Okay? Crude protein can also be different in organic versus conventional. Wheat protein quality and composition of organic versus conventional foods have been compared. And what are the results of wheat protein quality? Crude protein was significantly higher in the conventionally grown wheat product. And why might that be? Why would that? We scratch our heads and say, okay, what's the cause of that? Well, the thought is that when plants are treated with a nitrogen-rich fertilizer, their protein production is enhanced. If you remember back to the protein lecture, what makes protein unique as opposed to carbohydrate and fat is its nitrogen content. So if I'm processing a plant with a nitrogen-rich fertilizer, it should make intuitive sense. Okay, nitrogen equals protein, and the protein content might be higher in conventionally grown wheat. Organic products also appear not to take up nitrogen as fast as the conventional ones do. Now, although organic products are lower in crude protein, their amino acid profile, and remember an amino acid is a building block of proteins, may actually be higher than conventional ones, making them a higher quality protein, but less total protein. Now, what about flavonoids? Wonderful group of antioxidants, wonderful subgroup of this polyphenolic compounds. These are a group of compounds often associated, again, with the pigments in plants. Dried tomato products have been looked at, conventional versus organic, and they've been studied over a 10-year period. And so what do we know? What are the results? There were significantly higher levels of three particular flavonoids, quercetin, kaempferol, and arginine, were found in the organic tomato samples. So again, higher amounts of polyphenolic compounds. Now certainly, what about pesticide concerns? We're always concerned about pesticides. Pesticide consumption has controversial effects and has been shown to be linked to, but not causative, solid tumor cancers, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and leukemia, as well as some childhood cancers. Well, what about breast cancer and pesticide use? Research has concluded there's really no connection between breast cancer incidence in women living in areas with high levels of agricultural pesticides. So again, when we're thinking about should I or should I not, the question remains, is this a major cause of cancer? And I think the jury's still out on this. Organic foods have lower levels of pesticides when compared to conventional foods. Keep in mind, however, that trace amounts of pesticides may be in the soil even though no pesticides were used. So again, organic products may have trace amounts of pesticides, not because the farmer is breaking the law or breaking the standard, but because the soil is going to retain some of those pesticides. Certainly, dietary intake, food, is the most common source of pesticide levels in the human body. The overall amount of pesticides on any fruit or vegetable, whether it's conventional or organic, actually poses a very small health risk to adults. But keep in mind, the result is not zero. The risk is not zero. And therefore, the reason many consumers would like to reduce the risk and get it as close to zero as possible, and possibly increase the nutrition and think, I'm going to buy organic. Now, certainly children can be a concern with high levels of pesticides, particularly their organophosphate pesticides. And so organic products may be beneficial in this at-risk population. So you're at the grocery store. You're thinking, okay, I understand it's controversial. Pesticides may not pose a huge risk. Organic food may be a little bit more nutritious, but not for every nutrient. So are there foods that are going to contain more pesticides than others? How am I going to refine my grocery list? Well, the foods that contain the most amount of pesticides, residual pesticides on the fruit, are going to be things like peaches, apples, sweet bell peppers, celery, nectarines, strawberries, cherries, pears, grapes, spinach, lettuce, and potatoes. So those are the big 12. Now keep in mind, what makes those things so unique is oftentimes you eat the whole plant. Foods, on the other hand, that contain the least amount of pesticides, in part because most have skin and outer layers that you don't eat, are things like papaya. But then broccoli, we eat almost all of the broccoli, so that's not universally true. Cabbage, you can always peel off those outer layers on the cabbage plant. Bananas, certainly most people don't eat the peel. Kiwi, mangoes, pineapple, avocados, and onions. So if I'm trying to look at my grocery dollar and think, how can I maximize my dollar and do the best job of protecting my health, I'm probably going to stay away from the big 12, but I might buy conventional onions because I'm not concerned as much about the risk. Okay, organic farming. I think one of the issues is that you can still have a pest and pathogen problem. You can combat this, and farmers can combat this by using crop rotations and organizing appropriate crop planting times. To minimize pathogens in crops with the use of raw animal manure for fertilization, human consumption must wait at least 120 days between the manure application and the harvest of the crop. Now, I'll tell you, this is a little bit difficult to enforce because a farmer could use raw manure and there's not going to be a certifier that's going to come out and inspect to make sure that they waited 120 days. And I think we've had some incidents where organic lettuce has actually been tainted with E. coli, probably because they didn't wait that 120 days. Well, what about the research on the presence of other pathogens? Reports indicate that there was no statistically significant difference in E. coli prevalence in certified organic versus conventional produce. So where does this leave us? Nutrition information. The USDA does not claim that organic products are more nutritious than conventional. Some of the science says yes, some of the science says no. There's a lot of contradicting evidence and research as seen from the studies we've explored on organic versus conventional food products. More extensive long-term research is needed in order to determine significant nutritional claims can be made about organic products. What about health concerns? Really no conclusive evidence to suggest that organic foods are beneficial in the preventing of diseases or common health concerns. So we can't say if you eat organic produce, you're less likely to have diabetes. So there's really no conclusive evidence. There's no long-term data analysis that have proven these results to be conclusive across the board. Now, what about quality? We do know organic foods may spoil faster, such as fruits and vegetables, because they have no preservatives. I have children, for example, who will look at an organic apple and it looks a little mottled, and they don't like the way it looks. It's not shiny and as red as the normal apples that they get, and so they reject it. So the bottom line is all of this is based on personal preference and your own opinion. Which direction do you want to go? Certainly, when we talk about pesticides, the overall levels of pesticides are lower on organic foods than conventional. Now, what about the cost? And this is oftentimes, again, my family that made the wrong decision. Organic produce can cost 10 to 30% more than conventional foods. And animal products and processed foods may be up to 100% more. So again, I think in families that are trying to pinch pennies, you might want to say, I'm going to avoid the ones that are most likely to be contaminated with pesticides, and I'm going to buy conventional with the other produce that is least likely to be contaminated. So why are these products so much more expensive? Well, they're much more labor intensive. You have to have expensive tools to control weeds rather than buying pesticides. It's very easy to spread a pesticide. It's not so easy to put in beneficial insects or other kinds of barriers to pathogens and overgrowth of weeds. Taste. Is taste a difference? Well, there seems to be really no difference in taste among consumers when comparing the two products. So again, it all depends on the taste preference of the consumers. So I look at this and think it's more a visual issue with consumers than it is a taste issue. So, do we have any tips for consumers? Buy fresh produce in season to receive the highest quality and the best price. Visit local farmers markets to support local farmers and receive the freshest produce possible. I'm very fortunate on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the local farmers in South Texas actually have a farmers market at Rice. So all I have to do is walk into the parking lot and I can get organic peaches. Remember, peaches are high in the pesticide. I can get organic peaches that are absolutely mouth-watering. So if you have a local farmers market in your area, visit the local farmers market, make a relationship with a local farmer, and ask if they're providing you with organic produce. Start your own garden, or participate in a community garden project as well. Read labels. Has that not been a consistent theme? Read labels carefully and know what you're buying. Organic doesn't necessarily mean healthier, especially when we're talking about processed foods. Why? I can think I'm buying an organic macaroni and cheese, for example. But that product still could be high in total fat or salt, and depending on the product, it could be high in sugar and calories. So you must read the label. Keep in mind that organic doesn't mean that it's lower in calories. You have to read the label. One of the things that you can do with both organic and conventional produce is thoroughly wash it. Wash it. Scrub the outside if you're going to eat that outside peel. And if you're concerned about conventional fruits and vegetables, peel them. So if you're concerned that your family is eating a conventionally grown apple, high pesticide concern, peel the apple. And if pesticides are an issue for you, buy the organic produce that is listed on the highest pesticide content list. Okay. Our frequently asked questions. Other than infancy and early childhood, which I've mentioned, are there certain times in the life cycle when eating organic is particularly important? What about pregnancy, chronic illness, and old age? In general, the more vulnerable the population, the greater the advantage to choosing organic. So I would say, bottom line is if you're concerned in pregnancy, and again, we don't have any long-term studies on pesticides and pregnancy outcome, but if you're concerned and you want to do everything possible, go ahead and choose organic. Keep in mind, even though the research isn't there, it might give you the psychological relief to know that you've done everything possible. Same thing with your children. You might want to do that. Again, there is some link between pesticides and certain forms of cancer. Children can be vulnerable, mostly because of their body weight. So children are going to have a higher amount of pesticide per pound of body weight than an adult because they weigh less. So maybe with your children, you think, I would really like to make sure I'm using organic produce with my children. Now, what about the vegetable washes and sprays that are available? Don't they remove all pesticides? Well, you know what? That's the claim. But a small study suggests that it's the mechanical action of scrubbing fruits and vegetables with water for at least 30 seconds that's just as effective as the washes. Now, I'll tell you, early on in my clinical practice, I had the very fortunate experience of working with an HIV population. And in this population, we actually, in addition to scrubbing, we actually suggested that to kill the bacteria, because that was a bigger issue for an HIV population, to kill the bacteria on fruits and vegetables, that you could take about a teaspoon of bleach. Now, I know that doesn't sound delicious, but a teaspoon of bleach to about a gallon of water, and that will kill the bacteria that are on the food. So that may be a tip for you as well. So again, another question that I get is, I like to buy organic, but I just can't afford it. So shouldn't we just skip the fresh fruits and vegetables and make sure we all take a multivitamin? The answer on this is please no. Don't do that, because again, remember what fruits and vegetables have that a pill will not is the wonderful phytochemicals that are in the polyphenolic compounds, the quercetin, the anthocyanidins, all these wonderful pigments that are in fruits and vegetables that are not going to be found in a pill. Again, if you're concerned and budget's an issue, peel the ones that are the most suspect, the ones that are on the Big 12 list. Peel those, and then again, choose organic for the other ones. Again, choose the ones that are most likely to be contaminated, peel them, and it's a great way to remove the residue and the wax, but please don't ever stop eating fruits and vegetables. So the take-home message on this lecture, and this one again is a little bit different than the other ones. We don't have all the science that we need to make a definitive conclusion. So it comes down to your budget, your personal beliefs, how many vulnerable populations do you have in your family, and again, your own psychological relief by choosing organic versus conventional. And thank you very much.